Decades before Muhammad received his first revelation, 4 men stood together during a pagan festival in Mecca, surrounded by idols, by chanting, by the smell of animal blood poured over stone gods, and made a pact. They would not bow. They did not know each other well. They did not agree on what they believed, but they agreed on one thing. The gods of their fathers were false, and somewhere out there, the real God was waiting to be found. They called themselves Hanifs, seekers of truth. Most of them would never find what they were looking for. To understand what these men were rejecting, you need to understand what they were surrounded by. By the 6th century, the Kaaba in Mecca housed, according to the traditions recorded by Ibn Hisham and al-Azraqi, approximately 360 idols. Every tribe had its god. Some were carved from stone, some from wood, some from dates and pressed fruit, and in lean years, the sources tell us worshippers would eat them. The largest and most revered were 3 goddesses, Al-Lat, Al-Uzza, and Manat. They were venerated across the peninsula. Pilgrims traveled hundreds of kilometers to visit their shrines. Entire economies depended on their festivals. This was not primitive superstition. This was an ecosystem. The idol system was woven into Mecca's trade, its politics, its treaties, its calendar. Challenging the idols did not just mean challenging a belief. It meant challenging the entire order of Meccan life. And that is exactly what 4 men decided to do. The biographer Ibn Hisham, drawing from the earlier work of Ibn Ishaq, preserves an account of the moment it began. It was during a festival, one of the great annual gatherings where the Quraysh celebrated their gods outside the city. 4 men looked at the rituals around them and walked away. Ibn Hisham names all 4: Waraka ibn Nufayl, Ubaydullah ibn Jash, Uthman ibn al-Huwayrith, and Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufayl. According to the account, they spoke openly among themselves. These idols, they said, are nothing. Our people have lost the religion of their ancestor Abraham, who worshipped neither stone nor star, but one God alone. They agreed to separate and travel, each searching in his own way for what they called the Hanifiya, the original pure monotheism of Abraham. Now stop and think about what this meant. These were not outsiders. These were men of the Quraysh, Mecca's ruling tribe. They had families, businesses, reputations. To reject the idols openly was to reject the social contract that held their world together. It invited ridicule, suspicion, in some cases persecution. And yet they did it anyway. Each took a different path, and each path led to a very different end. One found Christianity, one found exile, one found a foreign emperor, and one died searching, never having received the answer he spent his entire life looking for. His story is the one you need to hear. Of the 4, Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nufayl was the most uncompromising. He did not convert to Christianity, as Waraka did. He did not leave Arabia, as Uthman did. He stayed in Mecca, and he refused to be silent. The sources describe a man who would lean against the Kaaba itself in full view of the Quraysh and say, "O people of Quraysh, not one of you is on the religion of Ibrahim except me." Ibn Hisham records this statement directly. It was not whispered in private. It was declared publicly at the heart of Mecca's most sacred space. He refused to eat meat slaughtered in the name of idols. In a society where communal meals were bonds of loyalty, this was not a dietary choice. It was a political act. Every meal he refused was a line drawn. Beat. He would find abandoned infant girls, the victims of Waid, the practice we explored in an earlier episode, and take them in. He would raise them himself or find families willing to care for them. This was a man who did not merely reject false gods. He lived as though the true God were watching. And for this, his own family turned against him. His uncle, Al-Khattab ibn Nufayl, drove him out of Mecca. The sources record that Al-Khattab organized young men to harass Zayd whenever he tried to enter the city. He was forced to live in the caves and hills around Mecca, visible from the valley but forbidden from entering it. Zayd traveled. The sources record that he journeyed to Syria, to Mesopotamia, to the lands of the Christians and the Jews, seeking anyone who could teach him the religion of Abraham. He met monks. He met scholars. According to Ibn Hisham's account, he spoke with Christian hermits and Jewish rabbis, asking them about the original faith, the pure monotheism before it had been divided into sects. None of them satisfied him. He did not become a Christian. He did not become a Jew. He came to believe that both traditions had drifted from the truth he was looking for. And so he returned to the Hijaz, alone, without a scripture, without a community, with nothing but a conviction that one God existed and that the idols were lies. Think about what kind of faith that requires. Not faith in a book, not faith in a teacher, faith in an absence, the belief that truth existed even though you could not find it. The other 3 Hanifs found their answers, or at least found something to hold on to. Waraka ibn Nufayl became a Christian. He studied scripture. He learned to read and write in Hebrew, according to the sources preserved in Sahih al-Bukhari. He became one of the few people in Mecca who could read the sacred texts of earlier revelations. He grew old in Mecca, respected, but largely solitary, waiting for something he believed was coming. Uthman ibn al-Huwayrith traveled to the Byzantine Empire. According to accounts in Ibn Hisham and al-Tabari, he met with the Roman emperor and converted to Christianity. Some sources suggest he sought political backing from Byzantium, an attempt to bring Mecca under imperial influence. If so, it failed. He died far from Mecca, in a foreign land. Ubaydullah ibn Jash remained uncertain for years. He eventually embraced Islam when Muhammad began his mission. But his story took yet another turn. He later converted to Christianity during the migration to Aksum in Ethiopia. According to Ibn Hisham, he told the Muslim emigrants there that he had found clarity at last, while they were still searching. He died in Abyssinia as a Christian. 4 men, 1 rejection, 4 entirely different outcomes. But it is Zayd's story that connects most directly to what came next. The traditions record something remarkable. Before his prophethood, Muhammad himself encountered Zayd ibn Amr. Multiple accounts, including traditions preserved in Sahih al-Bukhari, describe a meeting in which Muhammad offered Zayd food. Zayd refused to eat meat that had been slaughtered in the name of idols. According to the narration, Muhammad never again ate such meat from that day forward. Beat. Think about what that means. Years before any revelation, years before Jibreel, years before Iqra. A quiet encounter with a lone seeker may have planted a seed in the mind of the man who would one day change the world. Zayd never lived to see it. The sources record that he died before Muhammad received his first revelation. He spent his entire life searching for a truth that arrived just after he was gone. According to a tradition in Sahih al-Bukhari, the Prophet later said of Zayd that he would be raised on the day of judgment as a community unto himself, a community of one. And then there is Waraka. Years after the Hanifs separated, after Zayd had died searching, after Uthman had vanished into Byzantium, and Ubaidullah had drifted between faiths, Muhammad descended from a cave on Mount Hira, shaking, terrified by what had just happened to him. His wife Khadijah took him to the one man in Mecca who might understand, Waraka ibn Nufayl. The old Christian scholar listened as Muhammad described the experience, a voice commanding him to read, an overwhelming presence, a terror unlike anything he had ever known. And according to the account preserved in Sahih al-Bukhari, Waraka's response was immediate. This, he said, was the same Namus, the angel of revelation, who had come to Musa, to Moses. The man who had spent his life studying earlier scriptures recognized, in Muhammad's trembling description, the very thing he had been waiting for, the very thing all four of them had been searching for, that night when they walked away from the festival. Waraka wept. The academic historian Robert Hoyland, in his foundational work on pre-Islamic Arabia, notes that the Hanifs represent something crucial, evidence that the spiritual crisis of the 6th century was not abstract. It was personal. Individual men were asking questions that their society could not answer, rejecting systems that their neighbors still accepted, searching, at great personal cost, for something they could not name. They did not start a movement. They founded no church. They left no scripture. But they proved that the ground was ready. When Muhammad's message arrived, it did not land in a desert of pure ignorance. It landed in a world where some souls had already cleared the brush and turned the soil. The Hanifs did not find the light, but they spent their lives pointing toward where it would come. 4 men walked away from a festival. They rejected 360 gods and found nothing to replace them with. 1 died a Christian scholar waiting. 1 died searching in the wilderness. 1 vanished into a foreign empire. 1 drifted between faiths until the end. And yet, without Zayd's defiance, there might have been no seed planted in the young Muhammad's mind. Without Waraka's years of study, there might have been no one in Mecca who could recognize what had happened on that mountain. The Hanifs did not change the world, but they made it possible for someone else to. That is the thing about this period. The answers had not arrived yet, but the questions were already burning. That is the world before the light. Next time, a story of survival, not seeking. The first Muslims, hunted and starving, flee across the sea to Africa. Their only hope, a Christian king they have never met, in a land they have never seen. And when the Quraysh send envoys to drag them back, one man delivers a speech that makes the king weep. If these stories matter to you, subscribe, because we are only at the beginning.